Ingrid Bergman left behind a secret note that told us things we never knew about her life and her heart. This note changed how we see her forever. Ingrid Bergman was born on August 29, 1915, in Stockholm, which is a big city in Sweden. She was the only kid in her family. Her dad, Justus Bergman, was a Swedish artist who also took pictures for a living. Her mom, Friedel Adler Bergman, came from Germany originally. But something really sad happened to young Ingrid when she was super little. She lost her mom when she was only 2 years old. Can you imagine? Then when Ingrid was 13, her dad died too. Losing both parents so young was really hard for her. But these sad times made her strong in a special way. She learned to take care of herself and became very good at understanding deep feelings and emotions. This would later help her become an amazing actress who could make people believe every character she played. When Ingrid was a little girl, her dad used to have her perform and act in front of his camera. He loved taking her picture. Through his camera lens, little Ingrid discovered something magical. She loved performing and expressing herself. It was like she found a special gift inside herself. After Ingrid finished school in Sweden, she decided she wanted to become a real actress. So she signed up for the Royal Dramatic Theatre School in Stockholm. This was a really famous and fancy acting school, the same one where the legendary actress Greta Garbo had studied before. Even when Ingrid was just starting out and learning, teachers and audiences could see she had something special. She was really good at showing true, honest feelings on stage. She made people believe her characters were real. When she acted, she let the audience see what her character was thinking and feeling inside. And that's a really hard thing to do. In 1936, when Ingrid was 21 years old, she got her big break. She starred in a Swedish movie called Intermezzo. In this film, her warmth and honest acting style made everyone fall in love with her. The critics, those are people who write about movies, loved her, and regular people watching the movie loved her too. The movie Intermezzo was such a huge hit that a powerful Hollywood producer named David O. Selznick heard about this amazing Swedish actress. He invited her to come all the way to America to remake the same movie, but this time in English so American audiences could enjoy it. So Ingrid made her Hollywood debut, that means her first American movie, in 1939 with Intermezzo, a Love Story. And guess what? She became a star right away. What made Ingrid different from other Hollywood actresses was that she looked and acted natural. Most actresses back then wore tons of makeup, fancy hairstyles, and acted in very dramatic, over-the-top ways. But Ingrid? She was fresh-faced, real, and honest. She didn't try to be fake or super glamorous. American audiences loved how authentic and genuine she seemed, like a real person instead of just a movie star. Throughout the 1940s, that whole decade, Ingrid Bergman became one of Hollywood's biggest and brightest stars. Everyone knew her name. Her most legendary and famous role came in 1942 when she played Ilse Lund in the classic movie Casablanca. In this film, she acted opposite another huge star named Humphrey Bogart. Ingrid's performance was absolutely beautiful and heartbreaking. With her glowing, luminous eyes and the quiet pain and sadness she showed on her face, Bergman made the story feel incredibly real. The movie was about love, sacrifice, and the sadness of war, and she brought all those emotions to life on screen. People still watch Casablanca today and cry at her performance. After Casablanca made her super famous, she kept making great movies. In 1943, she starred in For Whom the Bell Tolls. Then in 1944, she was in Gaslight, and this performance was so amazing that she won her very first Academy Award for Best Actress. That's the Oscar, the biggest award an actor can win. In 1945, she played a kind and caring nun in The Bells of St. Mary's, opposite the famous singer Bing Crosby. Every single one of these roles showed how talented Ingrid was. She could play complicated characters with grace, intelligence, and deep emotion. Other actors and directors respected her so much. She wasn't just pretty. She was one of the most talented and respected actresses of her time. Later on, Ingrid spent some years living and working in Italy. While she was there, she worked with an Italian director named Roberto Rossellini on several films. They made Europa 51 in 1952 and Journey to Italy in 1954. At the time these movies came out, not many people went to see them. They weren't big hits at the box office. But here's the interesting part. Years and years later, film experts and students realized these movies were actually groundbreaking and brilliant. They were ahead of their time. These films explored deep feelings like loneliness, confusion about life's meaning, and searching for your purpose. Later, filmmakers would copy the style and themes of these movies. So even though they weren't popular at first, they became super important in film history. After her marriage to Rossellini ended, Ingrid had to slowly rebuild her career and her reputation. She made an amazing comeback, a triumphant return, to Hollywood in 1956 with the movie Anastasia. And guess what? She won her second Academy Award for this role. In Anastasia, she played a lost, confused woman trying to figure out who she really was and reclaim her identity. Many people saw this as a symbol or metaphor. Her character's story was kind of like Ingrid's own story of redemption and starting over. Audiences who had once criticized her now welcomed her back with open arms and embraced her once more. Ingrid kept acting in all kinds of different roles in both Europe and America. She was so talented that some of the greatest, most famous directors of her time wanted to work with her. She made movies with Alfred Hitchcock, the master of suspense, Jean Renoir, George Cukor, and even a director who had the same last name as her, Ingmar Bergman, though they weren't related at all. Funny coincidence. Her later performances, especially when she was older, showed just how much she had grown as an artist. In 1978, she starred in Autumn Sonata, which was directed by that other Bergman, Ingmar Bergman. In this film, she gave a deeply moving and emotional performance. She played a famous pianist who has to face her estranged daughter. That means they hadn't been close for a long time. The role was interesting because it mirrored, or reflected, Ingrid's own complicated real-life experiences as a mother. It earned her another Academy Award nomination, which proved once again that she was one of the finest, most talented actresses ever to appear on the movie screen. Ingrid Bergman's personal life was just as interesting and dramatic as her amazing film career. Her real life was marked by great passion, lots of complexity and complications, and a constant search for truth and fulfillment. She was always trying to find real love and happiness. Over the course of her entire life, she was married 3 times, to Peter Lindstrom, Roberto Rossellini, and Lars Schmidt. Each husband and each marriage represented a different chapter in her journey, as both a woman and an artist. These relationships and marriages didn't just mirror or match up with how her career was going. They also reflected how society's expectations for women were changing during the 20th century. Women were starting to have more freedom and choices. Through her 3 marriages, Bergman's life became this fascinating blend, this mix of love, scandal, artistry, and resilience. That means bouncing back from hard times. Her first marriage was to Peter Lindstrom, who was a Swedish neurosurgeon. That's a special kind of doctor who operates on brains and nerves. She married him in 1937 when she was still in her early 20s and just starting to become known in the film world. Lindstrom was a steady, calm, and intelligent man. He gave Bergman a sense of stability and safety as she was making the big transition from acting in Swedish films to becoming an international star known around the world. The couple had 1 daughter together. Her name was Pia Lindstrom, and she was born in 1938. Pia would later grow up to become a respected television journalist. During the early years of their marriage, Ingrid and Peter lived a comfortable and pretty normal, conventional life. This was especially true after they moved to the United States, when Ingrid was offered a contract by that Hollywood producer, David O. Selznick, we mentioned earlier. But as time went on, things got harder. As Bergman's fame grew bigger and bigger, her life became totally consumed, taken over, by the demands of acting and constant travel. She was always working, always going somewhere for a movie. Meanwhile, Lindstrom's work as a doctor kept him rooted and stuck in one place, in the medical world. Their different ambitions, their different dreams and goals, and their very different lifestyles gradually pulled them apart, like they were drifting in different directions. By the late 1940s, their marriage had begun to crumble and fall apart under the weight of distance, being apart so much, and emotional estrangement, growing apart emotionally, not feeling close anymore. Though Bergman's first marriage provided the foundation, the stable base, for her early years and gave her support when she was starting out, it just couldn't withstand or survive the transformative power of her artistic drive and personal desires. She wanted things that didn't fit with being a traditional wife. Their divorce in 1950 marked a major turning point in Bergman's life, both personally and professionally. Everything was about to change. Her second marriage to Roberto Rossellini, the legendary and famous Italian film director, was one of the most controversial and passionate love affairs in all of Hollywood history. It caused a huge scandal that shocked everyone. Bergman met Rossellini while she was seeking a new creative challenge. She wanted to try something different artistically. She had actually written him a letter expressing her admiration for his neo-realist films like Rome, Open City. Neo-realist means films that tried to show real life in a realistic way. Their meeting led to a whirlwind romance. That means they fell in love super fast and intensely. Their relationship defied societal expectations, what society thought was proper, and caused a scandal that absolutely shook the entire film industry. Here's why it was so shocking. At the time, Bergman was still married to Lindstrom, and Rossellini was also married to someone else. When news broke, when people found out, that Bergman was pregnant with Rossellini's child, the American press and the public reacted with outrage and anger. They were furious. Just think about it. Ingrid had once been America's beloved screen goddess. Everyone celebrated her for her purity and grace. She seemed like a perfect, innocent woman. But suddenly she was being vilified, criticized harshly, and labeled immoral and bad. People called her terrible names. The scandal was so bad that it led to Bergman's temporary exile from Hollywood. That means she had to leave Hollywood and couldn't work there anymore. But in Europe, things were different. There, she and Rossellini started, a bold new artistic adventure together. They made a series of films together including Stromboli in 1950, Europa 51 in 1952, and Journey to Italy in 1954. Although these movies were initially misunderstood and people didn't appreciate them at first, they are now regarded as masterpieces of emotional realism. Film students and experts now think they're brilliant. Bergman and Rossellini had 3 children together, a son named Roberto, or Robertino, and twin daughters named Isabella and Isotta, or Ingrid. Isabella Rossellini in particular would go on to become an acclaimed, praised actress and model herself, carrying forward and continuing her mother's legacy. However, and this is sad, the very intensity, that same burning passion that had drawn Bergman and Rossellini together at first, eventually drove them apart. By 1957, their marriage had deteriorated, gotten worse and worse under creative tensions. They disagreed about their art, cultural differences, coming from different backgrounds, and Rossellini's controlling nature. He wanted to control everything she did. Their divorce marked the end of one of cinema's most famous and tumultuous, wild and stormy love stories. In 1958, seeking stability and a return to normalcy, wanting life to feel normal again, Bergman married Lars Schmidt. He was a Swedish theatrical producer who shared her love for the arts, but he offered something different, a quieter, more grounded companionship and friendship. This third marriage came after years and years of turmoil, chaos, and trouble, and public scrutiny, everyone watching and judging her. It reflected Bergman's desire for peace and balance. She just wanted some calm in her life. With Schmidt, she divided her time between Europe and America, continuing to act in films, theater, and television. But she was also enjoying a more private domestic life, a home life away from the spotlight. Schmidt was supportive of Bergman's career. He understood her work. He often accompanied her to film festivals and theater premieres, the fancy first showings of plays, but he also allowed her the freedom she needed as an artist. He didn't try to control her like Rossellini had. Their marriage lasted for nearly 2 decades. That's almost 20 years. This was a testament to, proof of, their mutual respect and friendship, even when the romantic passion had waned, faded away. They eventually divorced in 1975, but unlike her previous separations and divorces, this one was amicable. That means it was friendly. They didn't fight or hate each other. Bergman and Schmidt remained close friends until her death. He would later play an important role in preserving her legacy. Through his archives and memoirs, his collections of her things and his written memories about her when Ingrid Bergman's private note surfaced. When it was discovered and came to light years after her death, it changed the way many people saw her. It changed how we understood her, not only as a legendary actress, but as a deeply human woman. We realized she was just a regular person who wrestled with, struggled with, love, guilt, and the consequences of following her heart and doing what she felt was right, even when others disapproved. Among the most striking, the most surprising and powerful revelations connected to this note was her quiet acknowledgement of a deep, passionate connection she once shared with Gregory Peck. He was her co-star in Alfred Hitchcock's 1945 masterpiece called Spellbound. Although the world had long suspected, people had guessed, there had been more than just professional chemistry between them, more than just working well together. Bergman's own words and Peck's later confession painted a portrait, created a picture, of two people who found something powerful, fleeting, short-lived and quick, and unforgettable in each other during one of the most emotionally charged periods of their lives. Gregory Peck, years later when he was much older, admitted what many people had already sensed and felt was true. During his first marriage to Greta Kukkonen, he became involved in a brief but consuming affair, a short but intense romantic relationship, with Bergman while they were filming Spellbound together. In a 1987 interview with People magazine, this was many years after the affair, Peck said candidly, honestly, and openly, "All I can say is that I had a real love for her, and I think that's where I ought to stop. I was young. She was young. We were involved for weeks in close and intense work." His words were both a confession, an admission of what he'd done, and a quiet plea for understanding. He was trying to explain that their intimacy, their closeness and romantic feelings, had been born not out of scandalous intent, not because they were trying to be bad or cause trouble, but out of a genuine connection formed in the crucible of artistic collaboration. That means their real feelings developed because they were working so closely together on something creative and emotional. When you're acting out love scenes and emotional moments day after day, sometimes the lines get blurred between acting and real feelings. Bergman's note, written years later after a lifetime of fame, heartbreak, and redemption, making up for past mistakes, reflected her lingering feelings about that time. Lingering means those feelings stayed with her, never quite going away. She wrote, "Gregory was kind, gentle, and strong in a way that frightened me. He reminded me of what I wanted in a man, but also of what I could never keep." These lines are really revealing. They show us that for Bergman, the affair wasn't just a trivial fling. It wasn't just some silly, meaningless romance. It was an emotional crossroad, an important moment in her life that haunted her in quiet moments for years afterward. She saw in Peck not only a co-star and fellow actor, but a mirror of her own longing, a reflection of what she wanted and wished for. She wanted stability and depth in a man, a deep connection in a world that constantly demanded she perform, please everyone, and just move on to the next role. But she felt she could never really have that with him. On the Spellbound set while they were filming, the chemistry between the two stars was undeniable. No one could miss it or deny it. Alfred Hitchcock, the famous director who was always watching everything carefully, he was known for being very observant, noticed the spark between them, and being the clever filmmaker he was, he used it to his advantage. He crafted and created scenes that were charged with tension and vulnerability, using their real attraction to make the movie better. The film's story was about a psychiatrist, a doctor who helps people with mental problems, and a man with amnesia, someone who can't remember his past, who fall in love amid psychological chaos and confusion. The movie's plot became an eerie reflection, a strange mirror, of their own lives at that moment. I think I fell in love with the man in front of the camera and behind it, Bergman once confessed in another interview years later. Sometimes when you are acting love, it becomes real before you even notice. That line carried more truth than audiences could have possibly imagined. She was admitting that while they were pretending to be in love for the movie, they actually fell in love for real without even meaning to. For Peck, the affair was a complicated mix of passion and guilt. He felt both strong feelings of love and terrible guilt about what he was doing. He was married with a young family waiting for him at home, and he felt torn between duty, his responsibility to his wife and children, and desire, what his heart wanted. Bergman, too, was married to Dr. Peter Lindstrom at the time, so she was in the same situation. Yet both of them were swept away, carried along like by a powerful wave, by the intensity of the production and the emotional intimacy that acting can foster. When you're acting in romantic, emotional scenes together every day, it creates this intimacy that can be very powerful. In Bergman's note, she wrote about the guilt she carried, the heavy feeling of having done something wrong. We told ourselves it was only acting, that what we felt was part of the film, but that was a lie. When I looked into his eyes, I forgot everything else. That frightened me more than anything. Can you feel the emotion in those words? She's admitting they tried to pretend it wasn't real, but it was. And when she looked at him, everything else in the world disappeared. That scared her because she realized how powerful her feelings were. After the filming ended and the movie was done, both actors returned to their respective lives. They went back to their separate lives and families. Yet the memory remained etched into them, carved into their hearts and minds like something permanent. Peck would go on to build one of Hollywood's most respected and successful careers. He became one of the most beloved actors ever. Later, he found true happiness with his second wife, Veronique Pisani. He eventually divorced his first wife and remarried. Bergman, meanwhile, went through and survived public scandal for her affair with Italian director Roberto Rossellini, a relationship that cost her her Hollywood career for several years, as we talked about earlier. Yet the tone of her note suggested that she looked back on her time with Peck as something far purer and more innocent, something untainted by the judgment that later followed her. Unlike her relationship with Rossellini, which caused such a huge scandal, her time with Peck seemed cleaner and more beautiful in her memory, not destroyed by everyone's criticism. She was the most alive woman I ever knew, Peck once said in private conversation, according to friends who heard him. When Ingrid entered a room, you felt the air change. Just imagine what that means. Her presence was so powerful that people could feel it, like the atmosphere itself shifted when she walked in. For Bergman, Peck represented a kind of emotional safety she rarely found in her whirlwind life, her crazy, busy, chaotic life. In her letter, she wrote, "If I had met Gregory at another time, perhaps everything would have been different. But life gives us only moments, never guarantees." She's saying that if they had met when they were both single, maybe they could have been together for real. But life doesn't promise us anything. It just gives us brief moments, and we don't know how they'll turn out. Those moments they shared, fleeting though they were, as short and quick as they were, seemed to leave an indelible mark on both of them. Indelible means permanent, something that can't be erased. The note's discovery decades later, many years after everything happened, reframed what had long been dismissed as a passing set romance. For years, people thought it was just a quick fling between actors on a movie set. Nothing important. But the note showed it was actually something much more significant. It was a quiet but powerful testimony, a statement and proof of two hearts that collided briefly in the midst of art and ambition. Two people whose hearts crashed into each other while they were making art and chasing their dreams. The note revealed that Bergman, beneath all the glamour and acclaim, underneath the fame and fancy clothes and awards, remained vulnerable, capable of deep feeling, and forever introspective about the choices she made. Introspective means she thought deeply about her own feelings and decisions. She questioned herself and wondered about the roads she didn't take. In the end, her words, "I never stopped being grateful for the kindness he showed me," echoed through the pages like a gentle confession, like a soft admission of truth. They humanized a woman often seen only as a screen icon. They reminded us she was human, not just a movie star. These words reminded the world that even legends fall in love, make mistakes, and leave behind truths too tender to speak aloud in their lifetime. Some truths are so gentle, so personal, so emotional, that people can't say them out loud while they're alive. They can only write them down in secret notes to be found later. The note changed everything, not because it scandalized the past, not because it made everything seem dirty or shocking, but because it illuminated the heart of a woman who dared to love deeply and live honestly, even when it cost her everything. It shed light on who she really was inside. Ingrid dared to follow her heart even when society judged her, even when it meant losing her career, even when it meant being called terrible names. And that took incredible courage. Ingrid Bergman died in London on the 29th of August 1982, at midnight on her 67th birthday. Can you imagine? She died right when she turned 67, on the exact day she was born. Her ex-husband, Lars Schmidt, remember, they had divorced but stayed friends, and 3 other people were present at her bedside. They had drunk their last toast to her, raised their glasses to honor her, just hours earlier, before midnight came. A copy of The Little Prince was at her bedside, open to a page near the end. The Little Prince is a beautiful philosophical book about love, loss, and what really matters in life. It's interesting and meaningful that this was the book near her when she passed away, like she was thinking about life's deepest truths right up until the end. And that's the story of Ingrid Bergman, a legendary actress, a complicated woman, someone who loved deeply, made mistakes, felt guilt, found redemption, and left behind a secret note that helped us understand her heart.